'cause I love this land. It takes my breath away.
Welcome to Texas 10. I'm Melissa.
And I'm Steve.
And we have been traveling the roads of Texas for the last 5 years. There's 254 counties in Texas, and we have been to
234 of them. And along the way, we've been collecting a lot of information. If you want to know more about what we've seen and where to stay, where to eat, places to go, just anything about a county or a city that you're interested in visiting in Texas, go to texas10.com and look at our field guides, and we've got it there for you.
Well, I'm an educator, and for many years I taught fourth grade, and that's where we start teaching about Texas history. So I had a little project for my fourth graders that they loved. It was an historical marker hunt. They got points. They loved it. And well, if they wanted to get a lot of points, they should go to where we're going today.
We're going to go on a Texas history tour, starting in Gonzales, Texas, then move to Cuero, then go to Goliad, and it is an area that is rife with Texas history. It's great for adults to just sort of relive it. If you have children, school children, 4th and 7th grade, I think,
yes,
are the Texas history, but really any history buff is going to love this. Gonzales is just south of I-10, closer to San Antonio, but in between San Antonio and Houston, and you run right down 183. So 183 to 83, if you're headed to the coast, it's a great little trip to take, but don't just run through these towns, stop and see what they have to offer.
Because have you heard, come and take it?
I have. I've heard that often.
Well, you will find the cannon that is the Come and Take It cannon in Gonzales, Texas. And here's a little thing. I thought it was huge, and so did my kids.
Well, it's a huge thing in Texas history. So in 1831, the Mexican government had sent to the Texians, we weren't called Texans then, we were called Texians, a 6-pound cannon.
It's not very big.
And said, you need this to defend yourself on the frontier. Well, a couple of years later, 1835, things were getting a little heated between the Texians and the Mexican government. And they said, could we please have our cannon back?
And we said, no, come and take it.
And so that was in a letter. I'm a lawyer, so I send letters like that sometimes. But the Mexican government was serious about it. So they sent an army, or a part of an army, to come get their cannon. They showed up, and 2 women in the town had sewn a flag, a white flag. There's a star on top, a cannon underneath, and it says,
come and take it.
And so there was a little bit of a skirmish, and the Mexican government learned that the Texians were pretty handy with rifles and said, we're going to beat a retreat and see if we're going to do this another way. And so that was the first land battle of the the War for Texas Independence, right there in Gonzales, Texas, with the Texians coming out on top.
Another interesting thing that you find is there's this old oak. There's a tree. It's called the Runaway Scrape Oak, and it's where Sam Houston actually recruited soldiers for the Revolution.
Well, and so that's going to tie into what we talk about when we get to Goliad in a minute. And so we were riding high after the come and take it thing. After the Alamo and what happened at Goliad, the runaway scrape was when we were fleeing. That's what the Texians were doing. They were running away from the Mexican army under Santa Anna. And Sam Houston, of course, had to rally the troops. He had to get some troops. This was on his way to San Jacinto. And so you can just imagine, it's a huge tree. And you can just imagine sort of the desperate circumstances they were in. And, what a leader he was to be able to accomplish that. So Gonzales has got a ton of history to it. A good time. They have what they call the Come and Take It tour.
Right.
And there are historical homes all throughout Gonzales. That would be a great time to come visit.
It really would. It's also a great way, if you're going down to the coast, you can drive through these towns if you're going for a vacation to the coast. Also, before we leave Gonzales, we need to say it has an absolutely beautiful courthouse.
A great courthouse, a very active square. So they sell a lot of come and take it merchandise in Gonzales. But they've got a great old theater there. We went to a really good restaurant. There's a couple of good hotels down there. Again, all stuff you can read about on Texas10.com. So it's more. There is a museum, by the way, where you see the cannon and all of
the actual cannon is there.
Right. And you learn the story in an even deeper way. So Gonzales is a great place to start. Then you mosey down 183, headed south, and you go to Cuero.
Wow, I was really surprised with Cuero. I was actually a little sad because we were there pretty late in the afternoon, so a lot of the shops were closed. But they have some very high-end, beautiful stores. It's also the home of the Cuero Turkey Trot.
It is, and their nickname, we have talked about Hutto before. We love the Hutto Hippos. 1 and 1A in Texas nicknames for high schools would be the Cuero Gobblers. I just love that. I don't think there's another Gobblers team
I'd love to hear their cheer. Gobble, gobble, gobble.
But as Melissa was saying, their courthouse is amazing. It is more of a Spanish-style courthouse, and it's just gorgeous. And there is great, very high-end economic activity there. It's pretty close to the Eagleford Shale, and so it's enjoyed a real resurgence. And so it's not a huge town, but it's very active and prosperous, well-kept, and they're the Gobblers, so you got to love them.
You got to go. There was also that great Italian restaurant in the old gas station.
Right. I love the restaurant.
La Bella Trattoria or something like that.
I think so. And so it was a little bit late in the evening. We'd been traveling. We were hungry, and man, did it hit the spot.
Good.
Right.
And so then we went on to
Goliad. All right. And so Goliad is, you hear Remember the Alamo a lot. Mm-hmm. Well, right at about the same time, a tragedy happened at Goliad also. And the battle cries at San Jacinto weren't just Remember the Alamo. It was Remember the Alamo, Remember Goliad. And because the Alamo was first, I think, that's why that's remembered. But we actually lost more men at Goliad than we did at the Alamo.
Right. There is a beautiful mission there. And then there's also the fort.
Right. So, again, the Mexicans had established, the Spanish had established a fort, or the mission and the fort. Goliad is the third oldest town in Texas. It was established in 1749. And there was Mission Esperato, which was there to colonize the Native Americans and do all of the things that we've learned about in history. And then La Bahia was a fort, and it's named after the bay. The Matagorda Bay isn't too far away, so it's the bay. And that it was there to protect the mission, obviously. In 1835, a force under Fannin took La Bahia from the Mexican government. So again, we were riding high in 1835. And then 1836 came around, and we'd just lost the Alamo. And Fannin was in a quandary as to what to do, and decided that he was going to try and meet up with Sam Houston, and he led his troops out, and Santa Anna's, one of his lieutenant generals caught them on an open plain, and although there was a battle that ensued for a while, they finally thought discretion was better part of valor and surrendered. Mm-hmm. And so that's in most normal civilized wars, if there can be such a thing, that's where you become a prisoner of war. Back then, you get stripped of your weapons, that sort of stuff.
But not here.
Santa Anna had decided that the way to put down the revolution was just through terror and to make sure that he gave no quarter. So while they were being marched back to the fort, believing they were going to be prisoners of war, they were massacred. Over 300 of them were shot dead. And so that's why one of the rallying, actually, let me stop here and say, Santa Anna was a cad. I just like if you want a villain, way to put it. If you want a villain in a movie, just cast Santa Anna, because that was his decision, and I don't know that Lieutenant General really wanted to carry it out, but he did.
But it's interesting too, at the fort, they had a whole kind of exhibit about their quarters and the general and the where is it? The mission.
Right. Mission Esperado.
Mission Esperado was really beautiful. And inside, when you went in, a lot of the painting is still there on the walls, and it really is a great example of that architecture. And you can see the Catholic tradition in those missions. It's really, I think it's beautiful as the missions in San Antonio.
It is, and it's a real highlight. If you're a photographer, it's got all sorts of interesting angles and whatnot to take. And so you can see why you needed it protected. Unfortunately, it turned into all of that. Then there's a couple other things to see in Goliad. There's a memorial to Fannin and his men, and it's really moving. I mean, you think about people that died for liberty and that sort of stuff, and it's a really cool place to have a little bit of a reflection about how lucky we are.
So, if you want to get
And then actually go downtown to Goliad.
Oh, that's true. Its its courthouse was very pretty too.
Its courthouse was great. I think we did a little damaged shopping there, if I remember right.
That's right.
And the one thing that I remember about downtown Goliad is there's a cafe there, and they have the greatest Bull Durham mural.
It's original.
Right, it's original.
Preserved it.
And I think some scholars that study these things from the University of Texas helped them make sure it was maintained exactly right. And so spend a little bit of time in downtown Goliad too. Don't just visit the Mission and La Bahia, although those are obviously great and the memorial, those are all must-sees. But that's our little history tour. If you want to be on Mrs. Howen's history hunt, you can collect like 500 historical markers in that little stretch down 183.
So we hope you will take some time to enjoy Texas, and we hope you will continue to join us on Texas 10.
Bye.
About you, and I love this land. Oh, it takes my breath away. From the Palo Duro to the Gulf Coast Plain, from the heart of the hill country to the piney wood shade. I love this land. It takes my breath away.